I made a video about what freaked me out about the UK, living there, and how it was just going from, or how, sorry, not how it was, how it is going from bad to worse. And I had a lot of, I gave my just personal experience of growing up and how the changes had occurred and what I thought was sort of the downfall. And it's been really interesting because that was just my personal experience. And then in the comments, it's been this flood of check out that video if you haven't seen it, but lots of people came back with immigration and the politicians. So just out of interest, I just thought, well, I'm going to delve into that. Let's really see if it is the politicians. Let's see, or a particular politician, and let's see if it really is immigration. So I delved into, just to briefly recap, I delved into the immigration issue, and the bit that I think is front and center about immigration is it's the social integration part, which I think is the main sticking point for me. I hear friends talking about going into towns and feeling uncomfortable or at risk because of young males who speak a foreign language hanging around, and they feel unsafe. There's obviously also a monetary burden on housing these people, and we all hear about millions of pounds per day to house them and somehow deal with them. So I get it, but I couldn't really pinpoint immigration as the issue for what I think has been multiple decades of degradation of the UK, which most people agree with me that somewhere around 2000 there was this tipping point where from then on it was a sharp decline and hasn't stopped since. And I feel the immigration issue has really only been maybe the last 10 years where we get all these boaters and that side. So anyway, that was the immigration point, which I looked into, did a video on. I then looked at the politicians, and again, I couldn't pinpoint any single politician or a general governance. We've had Labour, we've had Conservative, this in the UK, we've had a whole mix, we've had all sorts of ideas, austerity, Brexit, one thing and another, and just generally, as with politics, they meddle and make things worse, but on a very gradual, fractional basis. So, and in the end, when I analysed it, I came to the conclusion that it's our system that's the biggest problem, not a particular politician, because all they're doing is, this is the kind of conclusion I got to, is they're making their best guess at they're doing their best for people, is with what they've got in the time they've got. So again, I really wanted to blame the politicians. I really wanted to blame the immigrants, but I just couldn't get enough ammunition to lay all of UK's downfall at their feet. But I have found another. I actually hadn't thought of this, and no one has mentioned this in the comments on that video about the downfall of the UK. So this is not a new, but anyway, let me crack on with it. A major factor leading to the downfall of the UK has been, I'm going to point a finger right at it, Amazon. Amazon. And I'll explain why in a second. Leading on from Amazon, Apple. Leading on from Apple, Google, IKEA. Multinational companies, mainly US, all apart from IKEA, Swedish. Samsung, where I feel the greatest issue is when a multinational company or an American tech company serves direct to customer. And I'll explain why. So in a year, Amazon, for example, does around, well, the net outflow of profit from the UK is, by my estimates, Googling like crazy, around 25 billion. 25 billion per year. That amount, and that's probably not even close, that amount is staggering. And why that's an issue for me, let's just take Amazon. It's been allowed, Amazon.co.uk, We purchase an item, and often it will be an Amazon item that they've sourced, and sometimes it's a seller-related item. But either way, it's the same. That money goes to Amazon and vanishes out of the UK. It goes to Luxembourg, to Ireland, it does 10 twizzles and upside down and vanishes in a puff of smoke. It does not stay in the UK. Why is that an issue? Well, if you were a local ironmonger in Cambridge, you would source your product, your mop, your customer would come in, buy the mop, and the money would sit in the UK company. And then the boss would take some money, the staff would take some money, they'd pay the VAT, they'd pay corporation tax on the year, and it stays within the UK. Obviously, they've sourced the product, so someone, probably in China, has been paid for the mop, and yeah, some money goes. But the customer money, so this is post-tax, for an individual in the UK, everything's been taxed up to this point. They've got their end of month money, and it goes into the ironmongers and stays in the UK. And the whole idea of the system is that the money rotates around the economy. That guy goes into another shop, buys his dinner, goes into another shop, pays for the rent or the mortgage, and it cycles. It cycles in the economy. Now, why I suddenly realized that, or why I think they may be the downfall of the UK, is that we bought it from Amazon and the money vanishes, literally. So China got a load for the product, let's say, if they made the mop, and then when we buy the product, all the money leaves and goes to the US. Yes, there'll be some warehouse staff that are paid, there'll be some delivery drivers that are paid, they'll pay a small amount of VAT, I'm guessing, Amazon. Their corporation tax is nil, and no person has the money's mostly left, and it's the same. Meta, Google, Apple, you name all the companies we know and love, because you just buy it from Amazon because it's here tomorrow, and so they've destroyed. This is in Amazon's case, the high street, totally decimated it. So what should we have done? And then, okay, so you want to know the counter. So the Rolls-Royce in the UK, yeah, so we get some inbound, but that's company money. We do financial services, so fine, the bankers get some money. But look at the biggest banks, JP Morgan, American, Goldman Sachs, American, Morgan Stanley, American. Coutts maybe is a British bank, I'm not sure. But just think of your everyday person. Asda is owned by Walmart. Sainsbury's is owned by Saudi. So what consumer money stays? Tesco maybe? There's not a lot when you think about it. And it's that consumer money that used to circle. I guess if you shop at the Co-op, maybe that money, I haven't looked up who owns it. But so for me, I'm wondering if the biggest reason for the downfall of the UK are these multinationals who haven't been stopped. Toyota, we all love a Toyota. The money goes to Japan. So, and yeah, the people are employed and there'll be some VAT and all the rest of it. But the majority of the money vanishes. So what should have happened? And just try and think of a company that's UK based, that sells globally direct to customer. I actually can't think of one that's not a financial services company like Wise or Revolut. I believe they're both UK companies. Oh, and I think there's one called Boohoo or Boho that sells direct. There's not many. So when you think of like the financial drain on a B2C basis, I'm wondering if this is the issue. So what should have happened? Well, I feel when a multinational wants to sell in the UK, if they want to allow that, because some countries don't allow Amazon. They're just like, no, it's just a no. Like China has Alibaba, they have their own version of Amazon. Asia has Shopee. I know that's run out of Singapore, and I don't know how it works within each territory it operates in. But could the UK not have had its own major e-commerce store? Let's say it couldn't. Let's say Amazon was the best idea. Well, why hasn't, when they were given their operating license or whatever it was that allowed them to operate in the UK, why couldn't we segregate that UK element? Because even if it has, you're going to tell me, oh, it has, it's Amazon UK. Well, we all know they've done the dodge. We all know the money vanishes to Luxembourg, this, that, and the other. There's a license and there's a this, that, and the other to get around the system. And I feel that's why the EU is now fining. They find Google, like every month they find another way to find Google, another way to find Meta, another way to find Apple. And I feel that's them going, you know what, you owe us a load of money because you've taken it out of the country. And the only way for us to get it is to come up with some kind of monopolistic breach that we're going to fine you for. So what could have Amazon done? Well, let's say they had to keep their money in sterling. That would have done it, wouldn't it? If they would have had to keep their money in sterling in Amazon Limited, and those books were then audited and checked, all the money, and then taxes paid on a corporate level before it could be sent out of the country. Potentially, could have that worked? Could that work for all companies that operate in the UK? Possible, no? Yes, there's a digital tax. I think it's 2%, but that's absolute peanuts. What they need to do is put in a massive repatriation when they want to change that sterling money to dollars and take it out of the country. That is the point where where these companies need to pay. And just imagine, well, I can see it firsthand here in Malaysia. There's no Amazon. There is Shopee, but there's no Amazon. And when I go down the high streets, every shop does something. Knickknacks, this, that, and the other, food. It's all being serviced because somehow Shopee hasn't destroyed all the local businesses, whereas Amazon UK has just decimated them. And even up to a large scale, even other e-commerce companies, in the end, got knocked out by Amazon. You've got to take your hats off. They've done it, and somehow they've managed to take away. I mean, they have, going forward, a strong government needs to make sure these companies have a UK arm where all money goes to, so it can all be audited and checked before it's expatriated back to its source, back to the US. Because right now, the UK is getting fleeced. So before you sign up to Netflix or buy another Amazon good or anything where you know the parent company is US, just have a ponder. Can I buy this from a UK store? Is there any way I can support a UK company? That, or write to your MP, press on them that these US big tech companies must somehow not just vanish the money with a puff of smoke and some magic. Because surely that's where all the UK's money has gone. Surely. If it's not the immigrants and it's not the politicians, definitively, I know where a lot of my money's gone. It's gone to Amazon. 800 billion. Can you even imagine? Can you imagine what you would do if your bank account landed 1 million, 10 million, 100 million? $1 billion. Now imagine 800 billion. And we haven't even touched the sides of B2B. The UK military, it doesn't make its own weapons. I think BAE System makes some, but it's Raytheon, it's Lockheed Martin, Boeing. And just think of all the Starbucks coffees you've had. All this money leaves the country. And how do we get any of it back? We don't. And they've all done their Luxembourg, Ireland, and all their tax dodges for all our hard-earned money to vanish. I think that might be it. I think that might be the problem. And because those companies back governments, they get away with it. I never thought I'd be saying this because I'm so pro-business, but I'm not pro money leaving the UK for the US, who then say it's unfair. I'm not okay with that. Think of your Amazon Prime subscription, which I know you have. Money straight to the US, without a shadow of a doubt. I've somehow convinced myself that this is the fundamental problem for the UK. It's these megatech US companies. From doing this analysis of foreign megatechs, let's just call them that, foreign megatechs, is critical for me. The consumer making the direct purchase or the subscription or the payment or whatever. I feel B2B is fair play. UK companies buying, bringing in, it's where does the money end up? The final piece of the puzzle, you take the product and your money leaves the country. So what it's made me realize is I really need to think about what companies, because you're actually voting. When you purchase something, I'm so sorry. This has been fascinating for me because you're actually voting. When you buy from Amazon or pay for Amazon Prime or do your Netflix subscription, you're voting for US megatech to have your money. Yes, there may not be an alternative. Yes, it may be the cheapest, but we have voted with our money for them to have it. And so when we now point fingers at immigrants, at politicians, at whatever it is, I'm suddenly realizing, unfortunately, from doing this study of all these factors, that I was completely complicit in my purchases with my subscriptions, and that they're pretty much all to US megatechs, and that money's vanished outside the UK. And if only there had been more, I don't want to use the word protection because I hate it when governments suddenly think they're a protector. The framework in which these multinationals can whisk away our money is wrong. That's the problem. That money should have stayed in country, in a UK limited company, and circled back in, just like it would if you had bought from a local company. That's the mismatch. And that, for me, is the true reason for the downfall of the UK. That's it.